This is Defenders TV Podcast, episode 66, looking at Daredevil, season 2, episode 10, The Man in the Box. Welcome back, Defenders, to this episode of Defenders TV Podcast, looking at episode 10 of Daredevil, The Man in the Box. We are joined by a very, very special guest today. But before we introduce him, I am one of your hosts, John.
I'm one of the other hosts, Derek.
And rounding out the trio, our very special guest.
It's me again! Yay!
Welcome back, Chris.
Hey, it's not my fault. You threw me away after Civil War. Like I'm just saying. Just basically our own Avengers Defenders broke apart.
Mm-hmm. He was binned and then we decided to recycle.
Much like the Winter Soldier, I am back from the ice.
There you go. Absolutely. Yes, our own internal dynamics all clashed. We couldn't have two Iron Man proponents on the podcast, so we got rid of Chris.
Yeah, makes sense.
Are you an Iron Man proponent?
I am, 100%.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Thank God, we've got numbers now this time, Chris.
Yeah.
We've got numbers.
That's true. Still Team Cap forever.
Okay, Captain Blue Eyes.
But we will be talking about Civil War at the end of the podcast, so don't worry if you haven't seen Civil War. You can skip off before the end of that. We will be talking about Daredevil well beforehand. Chris, the other thing you also missed was obviously Daredevil episode 9. What did you think of that episode?
I had to say, it's not a Daredevil story until Nelson and Murdoch split up at some point.
Absolutely.
It was just like, yay, it's happening. Now it's really Daredevil.
Look at them split up.
It is. It was just like, oh. It was I had to admit, it was a tremendous outing for this season.
Mm-hmm.
And like the whole season so far has been this kind of like complex ride, and it's weaving a lot of stories, which not a lot of shows can do, especially when you start introducing additional characters, and it can get very crowded. So Fisk can stick in there. But they're doing it in a great way that they're doing, like giving these characters pretty much like one or two episodes max. Like you just throw them in, get their chunk of the story in, their arc, and then pull them out. So because if you haven't had Stick for the whole series, you'd be like, and we've seen Fisk. I love D'Onofrio. We've talked about it many, many, many times.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this series is more about Daredevil and Elektra and the Hand. So it made sense to have him in where he is now with the Punisher, but
Absolutely.
It's just didn't make sense to give him too much. But despite being in jail, Fisk isn't ruined. Yay!
Absolutely. Done a great job of it.
And without getting into secondary episodes, I'm still calling it. This is just setting up Born Again. The Born Again arc from the comic books. This is because obviously a scene in episode 10 kind of just goes, yep, that's straight out of the comic books.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll definitely be talking about that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, there haven't been a huge amount of Easter eggs in the last couple of episodes.
No.
If you found any Easter eggs that we've missed, obviously, listeners, you can email us at feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com and send those in to us. Or you can come and join us over in our Facebook group. Just go to facebook.com/groups/defenderstvpodcast, join the group and share any thoughts about all the episodes of Daredevil or anything else that we cover on the podcast.
And of course, in conjunction with Chris's thoughts on episode 9, in episode 65 of Defenders TV Podcast, or indeed our thoughts on Civil War, episode 64, you can obviously go to defenderstvpodcast.com/iTunes and subscribe and listen to us there. Indeed, as well, any Team Cap or Team Iron Man podcast catcher, such as Beyond Pod, Player FM, or Podcast Addict. Just search Defenders TV Podcast.
Absolutely. And also, if you want to see our lovely faces, you can catch myself and Chris on our Civil War spoiler-free video over on YouTube. You can also catch myself and John doing our full spoiler-filled podcast, about an hour and a half, I think, on that one, where you'll see our lovely faces chatting all about Civil War, which we will come back to after this episode. But I think it's time to get into this episode of Daredevil.
I think it is.
I think it is too.
Well, episode 10 of Daredevil season 2, The Man in the Box, was directed by Peter Hoare. He has directed an episode before of this season. He's directed Penny and Dime, and he's also set to direct the finale of the series as well. So obviously in good hands for this episode. Lots of writers on this one. It's written by Whit Anderson and Sneha Corse, who did the teleplay, and John C. Kelly, who did the story. All involved in the writer's room, but this is their episode, all working together. Lots of different elements to take care of in this episode. Probably the reason why so many of the writers got a major credit on it. John, do you want to tell us what they gave us this episode?
Yeah, absolutely. After Daredevil's confrontation with Naboo, he arranges through Detective Mahoney treatment for the children harvested of their blood at Metro General Hospital. At the same time, New York City is on high alert after the Punisher walks from prison, and none more so than District Attorney Reyes, who orders Nelson, Murdoch, and Page into her office to get information on Castle that may keep her family alive. However, as Reyes and Blake Tower reveal the truth about the carousel gunfight and the role of law enforcement, a firestorm of bullets riddles her office, killing Reyes and injuring Foggy. With Foggy hospitalized, Karen and Matt search for Frank Castle in very different ways. Matt confronts Wilson Fisk in a desperate attempt to learn more of his involvement in Frank Castle's escape, but is reminded all too readily of the Kingpin's commitment to settling scores and violence. And Karen's suspicions that the attack on Reyes and the city medical examiner doesn't fit Castle's MO are confirmed as she is saved by Castle from a similar attack by an unknown shooter. As Foggy begins to recover, Daredevil returns to the hospital to protect the children drained of blood from retribution by the Hand. But the children have also recovered and are awake to an unrepressed and violent power. Whew, there is so much going on at the moment in these episodes that it is a lot to try and boil down into a synopsis.
Yeah,
it's
well done, John.
mental. There's so many different threads now running through. I mean, I've hardly even touched on the fact that Claire Temple is like in this episode in a pretty cool and distinct way as well. So, loads of stuff happening at the moment in these episodes.
Absolutely, yeah. That kind of leads me straight into my first point. Well done, John. Nice setup. The way we cover our episodes, if this is your first time joining us for our Daredevil episodes, is we catch our top 5 points from the episode. Some good, some bad, some indifferent. Call them out, discuss them amongst ourselves. Hopefully we'll get to cover the full episode by discussing us through those 5 points. So my first one is, again, Claire Temple. I think I've called her out as one of my points each time she's appeared on screen. And that's really because I absolutely love the actress. I love that she's our binding force in the universe of the Defenders, the one that's appeared in every show so far. Daredevil season 1, Jessica Jones, she's definitely going to be a big part of Luke Cage. And we're seeing her in Daredevil season 2. So, really great to see her back again. I love the position that Matt puts her in this episode, where he effectively says, she calls it out actually. She says they're going to come back and kill the kids and the people that helped them, aren't they? But it doesn't stop her. She's obviously going to take care of the kids. That's her job. I love how confident she is, and I love how powerful she is and how strong she is as a character in the show. Definitely. I like the fact that she puts it to Matt about why doesn't he go and see his friend who's just downstairs, rejoin the human race, something that she says. Absolutely. I think something that she was talking in our coverage of Jessica Jones, something that she talked about with Luke Cage and Jessica, trying to push away the normal people in their lives. This seems to be something very central to Claire Temple's character, that she wants to make sure all of these heroes are grounded by the people around them, which I thought was quite cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm totally with you on this. I think it was certainly one of my points, and I've said it before, like you've said, she's really good. She's this really amazing connective glue between all these different shows, but also just within this show. I love her relationship with Matt. She injects like a huge amount of humor into it. She says, I'm not pleased to see you when they first meet early on in the episode. She goes, I forgot you like to suffer. Too bad, because the hospital coffee tastes absolutely crap.
All right.
All this thing. And I think even to the accountant, she goes, don't worry, billing will find you. When he says, how can I ever repay you? Like, it's really just a really nice injection of like wit and humor there, which I really, really like. And to me as well, she just at this moment in time articulates my feelings about Matt Murdock. I mean, you know, she says, stop being the loneliest soldier, come down and say hi to your friend.
Yeah.
You know, essentially be a human, not a superhero. You know, the more you wear that suit of armor, the more you, divest yourself from those things you're trying to protect. And that's the thing I'm getting at the moment. I feel like I'm actually, as an audience member, growing apart from Matt Murdock. I think, you know, for me, I'm Team Foggy at the moment. I'd be seriously pissed as well if I was, being shot, having to do all the legwork on the court case. And I love that, you know, we really, we see that fracture again just after he's been shot when you expect Matt to actually be helping his friend. Foggy kind of says, you never know when to stop. And Matt arrogantly says, I'm not asking for permission, you know, and when Karen asks, where is Matt? He goes, why ask me? You know, it's a real significant thing for me, and to me, that Foggy and Matt's relationship is at its absolute lowest here.
Yeah.
And I think Claire really articulates that, you know, Matt needs to make amends here. And that for me chimes with how I'm thinking about Matt Murdock at the moment. So that was a great aspect of Claire Temple, in this episode. I think she really shone that light onto, Matt Murdock, and Daredevil really, he loves to suffer.
Yeah.
You know, it really is the Catholic guilt thing.
Certainly. I think she has my favourite line in the episode as well, where she gives him some aspirin and calls it Catholic morphine.
That was so good.
You can't take something more powerful. You have to have the guilt and the pain inside you. So just have some aspirin. I like that little touch. Chris, any thoughts on Claire?
Yeah, no, that scene was standout for me. It really was. And I think it's, yeah, it's the Matt finding himself kind of adrift in that with the way that he's ready to almost give up on, like, his career and his personal life completely. All to stop the Hand and their diabolical plan. He kind of overdid it somewhat, kind of in the dramatic kind of elements of that portrayal, but it was still fantastic.
He's finally gone along with the advice that was given to him when he was, 9 years old by Stick, where it's you can't have any friends, you can't have anybody if you're going to be involved in this war, and he's finally coming around to that idea, even though he's kicked Stick out of his life.
Exactly, which I think, like, so this is kind of a bit of the, some of the disconnect I was kind of getting, like, so Claire's, she didn't change Matt's mind at all.
No, absolutely.
It's just like, he won't listen to reason. But her voice is, I think, John and I agree with you, her voice is the necessary one here, because you're not getting it from Foggy, and they're basically almost trying to paint Matt into this, the fall before the builds to greatness, almost, you know what I mean? And although, in his defense, I will say this, if he had gone down to Foggy at that one point, the ending scene of that of the episode would have been completely different, because he would not have seen the Hand run scaling up or heard them scaling up.
That is true.
I'm like, nah, he did have a point. I'm like, I kind of now see where he's coming from, but no, it was a really good. It was really good scene. It's just, I think I'm slightly biased now towards the end of this episode.
Yeah, but having said that, you know, he could hear the cock of the gun going, just before, obviously, that huge, shootout in Reyes' office. So he should have been able to hear, clamps hitting the top of the building, even if he was inside.
Well, now you hear that, you see that Foggy hears that, and so does Claire. So surely Matt could be able to hear that. Yeah,
okay.
So he still could have gone down, but I agree, I mean, it works that he's up on the top of the hospital, and certainly, you know, it just shows how incredibly stubborn this guy is.
He is the guardian devil, you know.
He needs a clip around the
well,
ear.
no, that's
quite frankly,
they're trying to make his character so anti-hero almost at this point, because you love to hate him because you're like, he's Daredevil, he's amazing. He's really shit to his friends, and he's actually not really good at his job right now. And he basically stringing two women along, and he's just not a nice guy right now. But we love him because he's Daredevil and he's kicking ass ninjas.
And I just wonder whether, you know, you're saying, it's the fall before he maybe comes up and achieves greatness, or whether he just goes even further down, which may be someone else's point for this episode.
Do you want to take that as your point?
Yeah, you go over it.
Okay, I will. I will take this as my next point. And it's wound up really with the Wilson Fisk and Matt Murdock confrontation in the prison. Anything Wilson Fisk for me is, quite frankly, out the ballpark. I've just absolutely loved Vincent D'Onofrio from season 1, and here I just love his range of expressions that he conjures up. I love his twitching hands that he has as Wilson Fisk. It just conveys so much of his, like, he's a boiling kettle that can't let off steam.
Yeah.
And that's the only outlet, is his hand moving. And then when it gets too much, he has the blowout, which is his rage, his fearsome rage. But before I go to the Smith and Jones sketch, the great thing here, and I think I mentioned it before, it's the Ed Brubaker comic series where Fisk is in prison, and so is Daredevil, ultimately. That Fisk has absolutely destroyed the identity of who Daredevil is and all his relationships and his connections. And we see here, I think it's straight out of the comics, where he's sat eating in his cell, almost, it's fine dining a la, sort of airport.
Fisk.
Yeah, a la, sort of airplane ready meal kind of thing, but he's eating it as though it is, a burgundy red wine, and he's eating it off fine china. But, is this the moment where Fisk, it becomes suspicious that Matt is connected to the Daredevil? He has that moment where he touches his lip, he's obviously reliving that punch that Matt gave to him, over the table, where he says, a son of a boxer. And, is that the moment where he remembers a similar punch when he met Daredevil and he asks for the file on Matt Murdock?
Very good.
Is it just to destroy Matt Murdock? Or is it that he's suddenly become suspicious that Matt may not be all that he seems? And I mean, if it is just Matt Murdock, there's certainly, which it could be, given then that fight, argument, and just that confrontation across the table, which I just thought was fantastic. To me, it was everything I would expect Wilson Fisk to do. He's been blackmailed by Matt, and I just loved his retort that I would spend more than $6 to crush and destroy you and Foggy. I love the fact that, he says, I'll cut the head off that two-headed snake, you and Franklin Percy Nelson. He's just so exacting. And I just think, he's doing all this beat down on Matt then when it gets physical, and you've got his lawyer outside, you've got the prison guards outside, and he just goes, they will deny it, and the inmates, they'll cut out their tongues.
So
it's just such a power position. And at the end where he says, let's do this again sometime, I just absolutely thought, fantastic. He really wants to just dismantle Matt Murdock and Foggy Nelson, and you can see it happening, and he will destroy it. And I can't wait to see, and I hope that is something that happens. Will it be in a season 3? Will it be something surrounding Defenders or the Iron Fist storyline? I mean, this is one of the things now, because there are so many different seasons starting to take place with Jessica Jones season 2. It's how these all intermesh. We've got Luke Cage coming this September. Iron Fist is being filmed at the moment. Yep. And they're saying, I've read, the Defenders, that will start sort of being filmed back to back with Iron Fist. So it's like, how will all these intermesh? And if you have a storyline where Matt Murdock or Daredevil, if you have a storyline where Matt Murdock is destroyed and his relationships and Daredevil is unmasked, how does that work into the Defenders? How does, or is it just a season 3 thing, or does it integrate into Iron Fist? There's so many different possibilities.
Yeah.
And how that all connects together.
Or the new Punisher series, maybe. Yeah.
Will be really interesting, I reckon.
So I'll go back to the Kingpin bit in a second. But the actual timelines, I know we're going a bit off topic on this one.
That's all right. It's our podcast.
Exactly. This timeline. So I actually heard that they're filming Defenders back to Jessica Jones season 2.
That's right.
Or maybe it was
So
maybe it was Jessica Jones season 2.
They've wrapped and they're on post-production on Luke Cage. They're filming Iron Fist right now. And then the end of this year, I think it's October, November, they'll start filming Jessica Jones, then straight into the Defenders. So that basically means Punisher and that unless they start with different teams, the Punisher and Daredevil season 3 will all have to have. Well, obviously we don't know if we're getting season 3 because this was never the plan. But then that's all they're filming. Let's say January, February. So
Potentially, yeah.
we'll probably the October session. They're the October piece probably for end of next year.
Yeah.
But I'm like in my head, I'm going, because I going back then into the Iron Fist, going back into Fisk.
The Iron Fist.
The Iron Fist.
Or Wilson Fist.
Yeah.
Mash up.
I've been looking, that scene for me was just absolutely fantastic. And him slowly ruling the prison was a great part of the last episode and how he kind of got around it. But the bit I'm seeing is that they are going towards this born again kind of like the born again arc from the comics where he's slowly putting together, like, because when he put his fingers to his lips and touched the cut and then went called for Matt Murdock's, I'm like, yep. He's just starting to make the connections.
Yeah.
And then, like, he's already threatened the Murdoch and Nelson. So now this is the extra. This is the straw that broke the camel's back, or the watermelon that was in the car door.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's the icing on the cake for Wilson Fist.
Absolutely.
Or the cherry on top.
I think he'd eat the whole cake.
Definitely do that. We're not the only ones that thought that. David Wang over on our Facebook group says, okay, now that we're in spoiler territory, does anyone think this means that next season we might get an adaptation of that arc where Kingpin utterly messes up Matt's life, but then instantly regrets not killing Daredevil because the latter now has nothing left to lose? Ronaldo replied saying, yeah, that's the born again arc. I can see them doing that. I'd like to see Bullseye though, or even a proper version of the Owl in season 3. Loads of options for season 3, and yeah, I'm totally with you guys. It does feel like this particular scene is setting up Wilson's future attack on Matt. But I do like the fact, one of the things I did like about that particular scene is that he does call out he's not only after Matt. If we do see a born again translation in this, he's also after Foggy here. He specifically calls out that he knows the middle name of Foggy, so Franklin, obviously. He calls him Franklin Percival Nelson, so he is effectively, that's showing his hand, showing that he's already investigated these two guys, which I really liked.
And he knows that Matt's dad was a boxer, so there's all that. And actually, can I just quickly come in with one of my other points, just because...
You're never getting a point.
Sorry. I know. I'm hogging everything.
Go for it,
Welcome back, Chris.
But it's to follow up on what Ronaldo says about Bullseye. For me, because we kind of caught a glimpse of the calling card of Bullseye in season 1. But is this shooter that presumably is being hired by the blacksmith, a contract killer? Is it possibly Bullseye? I was hoping, just thinking, please let it be Bullseye. Please let it be Bullseye. This would be fantastic.
John, I both love you and hate you so much right now.
I'm so sorry.
Because this feeds perfectly into one of my points, all about the Punisher. The ending of that point was, so we've we don't know who the shooter is. We never see. Could this shooter be the same shooter from the first one? Yeah, I think that they've shown their hand slightly. Anyway, I'll start from the top of my point. So, this was one of the cracks in this episode that I found.
Okay.
In that the fact that we weren't seeing Castle kill these people, like Reyes and the medical examiner, both gunned down, like very dramatically gunned down.
Yeah.
But that's not the character that we've met so far.
Absolutely.
Of Frank Castle, like, and the fact that they were always off screen, and we know from the premiere that he's face to face, or unless even when not face to face, but when he's doing the Irish mob, it's a lot more precision.
Absolutely, it's up close and personal,
yeah.
which is exactly the way he wants to kill people. Yeah.
And for me, that was like this screamed fake out for me. Like
absolutely.
that was the thing, and I think that was like but I don't think they were trying to scream it as a fake out.
Well, Karen did work it out pretty quickly that this can't be Punisher's MO. I think you were mentioning it in your synopsis as well. Yeah, I'm not sure whether the audience is supposed to be faked out, but everybody else has to assume in this city that if people are getting slaughtered and they're connected to the Punisher case, everybody else just assumes automatically it's Frank Castle.
Yeah, and I think that's what kind of annoyed me, because I think it was the audience was supposed to think it wasn't Castle. It was Castle.
Yeah, but I have to disagree with you both here. I mean, I get what you're saying, definitely, and obviously now with hindsight. But to me, going after Reyes and Blake Tower, for me, was absolutely Castle's MO, because he'd learnt in prison that it was law enforcement, that it was a sting, that they were involved, that the medical examiner had dodgy details and had faked aspects of it to cover up this slaughter and this massacre. So for Frank's code, they are as much responsible as the Dogs of Hell, the Hell's Irish, and also then the cartel that were involved there. Like, so I could see that. And then in the same way that the opening killing of the Irish Americans in the bar scene, that was, yes, it was more precise, but it was still, we didn't see him in that scene. It was a long range sniper machine gun being used, which sprayed the bar. And because I think Matt obviously manages to kick Foggy and Karen out the way, because Blake Tower is essentially hidden from the window, then he's spraying the room to try and make sure he gets as many people as possible. But obviously he's got to get out of there immediately because there's all the media coverage. So I did feel it could be him. The fact that I didn't see him, I didn't suspect that it wasn't him.
Can I come back on one tiny point on that?
Yeah.
Frank has specifically said that he will only kill who he wants to kill because he's a one-shot killer. He'll never spray a room full of bullets to try and take people out. But it is interesting.
Well, that makes no sense for the first kill.
He killed everybody in that room.
The guy behind the bar.
He thought he was dead behind the bar, but then he went off to finish him off. That was
Grotto.
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 Yeah, but he thought Grotto was dead, and then it turns out Grotto wasn't dead, so he went and finished the kill.
Yes, but he wouldn't spray a room full of bullets.
Yeah,
the point
so that
that
was
he
the
makes
thing.
to Karen.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to watch back on that first one because, yes, he hits his mark, absolutely, but there's still the bullets all in. I mean,
But I suppose the point is he wouldn't want to kill Matt, Karen, and Foggy.
Who he considers innocent.
But to the point...
and remember, he misses Grotto on a number of occasions as well.
Yeah.
As that him and Karen are escaping from the hospital.
To this point, he's not Bullseye. that's kind of it's. I know he says he will take the shot. He knows how to shoot someone with one bullet. Is the point he makes to Karen. But he's not Bullseye. He's not a perfect shot. I think that one of the elements that jumped out to me in the episode, and as we're talking about it here, could this other shooter be Bullseye? One of the elements that's made very clear by Claire Temple is that the bullet that went through Foggy went through cleanly and perfectly, leaving no damage behind. He's going to be released from hospital in a day. So I do wonder if that is Bullseye that took the shot and was taking out Foggy and the other people in the room, taking them out of not of harm's way, but taking them out of being a problem for them in the future. Do you know what I mean? So is this Bullseye, and his MO was to kill Reyes, shoot her 3 times, patter the room with bullets so that nobody else jumps back up and gets injured, and knock Foggy down to take everybody else out of the room.
Yeah, I mean, maybe for the medical examiner, it is less his MO, absolutely, because there it seems that he's broken down the door, I think, and then rather than a headshot, presumably with a guy who, you know, is going to be on his knees cowering, he's going to be frightened and scared. It's not like he's going to put up much of a fight, and if he does, it's going to be a desperate thing. So it's going to be probably, that one shot. That I understand. But I think from the initial office scene and that gunfight, or sorry, not gunfight, but from that sort of firestorm of bullets, that made sense that could be Frank Castle to me, given the Irish mobster bar scene at the start where you didn't see him. He sprays that room with bullets in order to kill all those people. Again, there's multiple targets in here, all running for cover. Therefore, he's got to throw a few bullets around to try and get them. Anyway, I'm hoping it's Bullseye.
And I agree with you.
And in this world, I don't think Bullseye has to be a perfect shot either. Like, in terms of the reality of it, it could be that he, you know, like Frank Castle, either he is deliberately spraying the room in that way in order to try and replicate what Frank may do, or, you know, he's not as perfect as the comic books, because in this world, maybe it is a bit more, real life street level. So therefore he can miss, you know, like Frank Castle can as well. So maybe it's that, but I just hope that it is Bullseye, basically.
So I think it is Bullseye. I think, but much like season 1 of Daredevil, where we saw the origin of Daredevil, we're also in between now seeing what we don't know it, but from we had season 1 episode Condemned, where we saw a guy, he was training, he shot, and we all went, that's Bullseye, amazing. And now we're seeing the second one, where he's now doing his second kill in the second series. He was aiming for Reyes and Foggy and Matt and Karen, making it look like Punisher. So we're seeing his growth as because the only reason that Matt and Karen survived is because Matt threw her down, and if Matt hadn't have pushed Foggy at the same time, that would have gone through Foggy's chest.
Interesting.
So I think what we are seeing is Bullseye's origin, but we're not being told it. And I think he is a hired killer. Fisk is out there. And Fisk has said, go take out these 2 people, make it look like Punisher, get them after him. Because Punishers are going to do what he needs to do as well. I think it's possibly because we overanalyze some of these episodes.
Never.
No.
On an hour-long podcast?
Of course not.
Or do you think it could be the blacksmith as well?
Absolutely. It could also be that the blacksmith's code name is Bullseye or something like that. I see where you're going with that. We've only got 3 episodes left in this season, and I can't see a way out of the season without knowing who's taking these shots, at least for Frank. At least set him on the path of who it is that he's going after, who's trying to make it look like Frank Castle. So how do we now tie up Frank Castle's arc without him going after this person?
Yeah, so maybe Bullseye is either a pseudonym for the blacksmith, or blacksmith's hired him as the contract killer to take out Reyes, to really, again, just put the heat onto the Punisher, or whether even it could be the blacksmith himself, or herself, or itself.
Absolutely. Chris, do you want to give us your next point?
Yes, I'm going to talk about Karen and the Bulletin.
Yes, interesting.
Yeah. So,
This sounds really positive, Chris.
It does. No. I'm sorry, people. This is another one that just isn't making a whole lot of sense for me, and it's just again in this episode it just came to a head. Deborah Ann Wall has been brilliant in this season. I have to admit it. Like, she as an actress is fantastic. Sorry, I should clarify that. And in season 1, I don't think it was Deborah. I think it was the way that they wrote Karen that was so annoying to for all of us, because we all had something. All of us had one or about two bad things to say across the whole series. Okay, just me then. Sorry, I'm getting...
Oh, no, I did.
Yeah,
no,
okay.
Absolutely.
So it was just myself and John who didn't like the writing.
Irene had some problems with it.
Yeah. Her little crusade to uncover the truth about Frank is really starting to... Okay, let's say irk me. How does that say? Irk. Not because I don't think Karen is the kind of strong, confident, most like a strong, confident character, a smart enough character to handle anything like that, because they just shoehorned her into the bulletin, if you know what I mean. Okay, it's very much like... I think, well, okay, this is where my head is going with this, because it doesn't make sense that a newspaper editor would go, oh, well, you found one or two cool things. Well, here's an office. Like, why don't you go and sit in there? And you can work for
here's
us.
a dead guy's office.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's very much a kind of circle with a square peg kind of thing. It's like the writers realized kind of when they started this, because remember, it was always supposed to be one series. So, like, one season, that was it. It's like they kind of went, oh God, we killed off Ben Ulrich. We need a reporter character.
I am 100% certain that that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
I do like Karen in this role. I think it's a really good role for Karen to have. We've complained in the past, or some of us have complained in the past, about Karen getting too involved in the law side when she doesn't have a law degree. I think this is perfect for her. She's the kind of investigative, tenacious character that you should find in a newsroom. And if you have killed off your proper reporter character from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, why not give it to Karen? She is, I believe she has some kind of past in the comic books as some form of writer in some of the earlier some of the earlier Daredevil stories. So why not give her the job in a newsroom? It keeps her involved in the storylines, definitely, and I can see it for her character being the kind of pushy, aggressive person that wants to get this information out to people. It's better for her to do it this way than try and get involved in criminal cases without a law degree, for me.
And I agree with you. Like, it does make sense for her to be there. I
wish it was Ben.
That's the thing. I think, like, but it was such an abrupt change. Like, literally, it was, oh, you've got some information. Oh, you've got some evidence. Okay, now you're a reporter. Here's your press pass. Bam. Like, within 2 episodes. Well, okay, you can say 3, to be fair. It's just very much, it was like she shoehorned in to be that Ben Ulrich character. And I don't...
And that she isn't investigating anything other than Frank Castle right now.
So
she's not just a reporter. She is just investigating this.
But she's been given an office, and she has a press pass. Mm-hmm. So they've given her a press pass. So it was just for me.
And we know ourselves that never happens lightly.
Exactly. No.
Exactly.
It takes a lot of work to get one of those. Anyway, I just to wrap this kind of point up, it's like Deborah Ann Wall, fantastic. Brilliant actress, loved her this series. Karen as a character is great. The exploration they're doing with her character is fantastic. Like, what's in the file, Karen? What's in the file? That was like, oh, brilliant, yay! I think they know where they're going with it. I like to see this variation on it. It's just the crusade element that they put her on, and they're trying to. She's no Ben.
She is a bit crusadey. I definitely get that. But I think I'm much more on the side of that. I think the newspaper role, the researcher and investigator for print is better than the law thing, even though you can have the researcher there. But I think because she was so entwined with Matt and Foggy and being almost one of the partners, but despite having a law degree, I like this idea of her being embroiled in the newspaper. I think the Ulrich thing has a kind of a personal aspect or slant to Karen's story. So I don't mind her so much, but I know what you mean. I think she's tenacious, and I think that is really now how I see her character. I think it wasn't articulated well in season 1, that aspect. And maybe as well, that was part of my own problem with thinking that she was going to be absolutely drug riddled, and that was going to be her main, sort of story arc, certainly given the whole Madame Gao and the cocaine movement through the Yakuza and all that kind of story arc. I thought there was really going to be that, and the fact that that didn't happen kind of, to me, left Karen in limbo a bit for me as a character. And I think the writers did that anyway in season 1 a bit. Here, I think this season, much better, and I do like her being put into the newspaper. It's strange when we talk about how real and gritty it is. It's strange that when we talk about these series as being, more realistic, more street level, that some of the things that are most fantastical are the fact that she is, can just walk into a major newspaper publication and get an office. Okay, I suppose she's got a good story to tell, and so any good editor would go for it. But nonetheless, I suppose it's just how quickly it takes effect here. That seems to be the unbelievable aspect of it. Okay. But what I mean is, I think that's just the storytelling, because they have to get through it quickly. So that doesn't bother me so much. I mean, I actually really liked her interaction with the editor in this.
Definitely.
I like the fact that we're starting to see a bit more, about, him saying, you projected here, you're projecting your own thoughts here, and that you have to look, and be open to the truth, and you can't blind yourself or close you off to, the evidence that, you're rooting for Frank here, rather than looking at the evidence when she comes to him about, well, it's not his MO. She needs to get evidence. And, she's starting to accept that herself, that she needs to be more evidence based. She says, I won't accept my gut this time. I need to have the evidence. I really like that. I think it explores Karen's character much better, those moments. And I think this season has done that really well. So I don't mind the newspaper angle at all. I think it fits her character better, if I'm honest, for me. But I can see why, Chris, I can see why you would say that, definitely.
No, and I hadn't thought about it like that. So that's a fair point, and it actually makes a bit more sense to me. But it's just, it still feels, just to kind of close the point, it still feels to me that they kind of, again, they didn't think they would be killing Ben Ulrich, and they wouldn't need a season 2 character like that.
I agree, definitely.
Then they're like, okay, well, actually, but then looking at the character as a whole, it does, you're right. So the second element is, she does fit that person who should be there. So it's interesting.
I have to say, I did like that little interaction with the editor of the bulletin, where she says to him, when he tries to get the cops to take her home, she goes, you never used to treat Ben Ulrich with this kind of crap. You always used to let him do what he wanted to do. And he says, I'll never make that mistake again.
Yes,
so
okay,
I thought that was a really good,
absolutely.
really good moment. So again, it's not only has she just walked into a newspaper, she also knows the guy. He feels responsible for the death of Ben because he didn't take the right precautions. He allowed Ben to go on his investigation, pushed along by Karen, admittedly. But there is some involvement there, and there is some history, and I'm really liking having these other side characters explored a little bit more as well.
So Derek, what's your next point?
My next point is the other element of the Reyes attack, where she effectively bursts all of our conspiracy bubbles in one scene. What a moment. Sorry, listeners. Hope you enjoyed our ideas
wild speculation
of what might be coming up. And I hope, again, anybody who's seen the rest of the season is enjoying our speculation of what might happen. But this moment left me a little bit crestfallen, as we had Reyes explain that actually, no, there was no men in suits. There was no involvement from any of the characters in Jessica Jones, no shield.
She's not Skrull.
No aim. She's not a Skrull.
Or the hand.
She doesn't have Kree blood coursing through her veins like we all speculated.
Nothing. I think that was actually some speculation at some point.
She's not She-Hulk.
No, nothing at all. She simply is All of Frank's family were caught in the crossfire. Simple undercover operation led by her office. And, she just tried to kill Frank to cover it all up. That's it. That's the only story here. Will we find out at all who the men in suits were that were constantly surveilling Frank's place? The people that took out the orderly that was in the nurse, I guess, who was in the hospital with Frank. I guess it doesn't really matter. They just seem to work for Reyes, and she's now dead. Is that the end of the story? Or are all of our theories about who could possibly be connected to this, were they all wrong?
As Foggy said, this case just keeps on giving up shit burgers.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, Reyes, you made a mistake. You covered it up.
Pretty badly.
Yeah,
But-
to be fair, pretty badly for the district attorney.
Is it karma?
Okay, yeah, I suppose. No.
Maybe. But she's not pro-registration or
No.
anti-vigilante. She really was just trying to protect her own arse.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah.
What a pity.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, I kind of found that Blake Tower's response as well, it's almost like once she was dead, he could come clean, but I wonder how truthful that is, and will we see him again? I mean, he talks about getting out of town, he still wants to stay alive, he's frightened for his life, but will we see him again? It'd be quite interesting. Is he being as honest as, he kind of seems to be suggesting he is, outside of the DA's office. So, I'm wondering if we've still got more to come from Blake Tower, or is that his kind of story over? He is going to go upstate New York, or he's going to go to, I don't know, deep into the Brazilian rainforest in order to try and escape a potential headshot from who he thinks the Punisher who's coming after him.
Yeah, it is interesting that he does explain away Reyes' motives very quickly. That is his opinion is that she probably did the right thing. In a way, Frank didn't have a family. Nobody was going to miss him. Maybe at that point she made the right decision, and he might have made the same one. I'm kind of expecting, since we did see Reyes up in Jessica Jones, that we may see Blake Tower up in Luke Cage. Just another bit of connective tissue in the city. I'm hoping I might see him in the future.
I hope so. I mean, as we've said anyway on a previous podcast, he does run for DA actually. So maybe now that Foggy is obviously in the wind as well, there's both these lawyers in the wind, that maybe they go head to head for the DA battle royale.
Perhaps.
Sorry, I love the name of that song, Lawyers in the Wind.
Lawyers in the Wind. I like it. On that, John, do you want to give us your next point?
My next point's the reference to the cheap science fiction novel, but I loved the reference to science fiction. I love the fact that the Midwich cuckoos came alive here, children of the corn, whatever it is. I think when you have freaky children, creepy children, with, strange looking eyes, there is nothing better in science fiction, horror in general. And this was just a call out for it. There's no mistaking the reference there, as they all lift their heads at the same time in unison, that they all turn around. The poor accountant thinks he's got his son back, and then what we actually find is that he's being used as a bit of a drug cocktail, so that all these toxins, what we hear from Claire Temple, is that from the tox report, you've got a load of substances being pumped into these kids almost as an incubation, as well as the blood being taken out. Basically these are meat bags being used for some kind of incubation, but it's being interrupted. So are these the men in the box, in terms of the reference to the title of this episode? Probably not, but I loved this. For me, this was total Midwich Cuckoos. I'm a big John Wyndham fan anyway. So, this I just loved for that. The dad gets his comeuppance,
Poor Stan.
Yeah. sorry, Daddy, I've just killed you. I think, what does he say? It's really not going to get better from here on in for the poor accountant. But yeah, I loved it. Claire Temple running in, seeing his body snotted on the floor, blood everywhere, and
as the lights flicker, just exactly
perfect.
like something out of a good 70s sci-fi film.
I
really
just got
enjoyed it.
so giddy with excitement with this, because I just think, what are they going to do next? And so then it asks and prompts the question, are the Hand coming to rescue them because they're a prize worth keeping, or do they have to put them down because something has been let out prematurely, and it needs to be, reset, started again? Are they here to kill or to capture?
Very interesting,
These children really like it. And if they are these kids going to do some massive smackdown of massive scary proportions? Probably not, actually.
You never know.
But
They took out the accountant pretty easily.
Well, no, they just cut his neck.
Yeah,
They could have given him wrong algebra to do, and it would have freaked him out.
absolutely.
Put his head into a complete tizwas.
I think it's Black Sky.
It must be.
They are incubating for Black Sky. That's what's in the vat. That's the only thing that makes a lot of logical sense.
Absolutely.
Because remember, the first Black Sky was taken.
They're the weapons. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So the little boy in the container was taken by Stick.
Remember it well, because we thought it was a connection to the Inhuman Sky on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so I couldn't... that was another...
Oh my God, we have so many, really... Some of our theories are great, and they do pan out, and some of them are just, my God, people, just shut us up at some point.
But there's also the immortal weapons from Iron Fist as well.
True.
There was that speculation, and we still don't know on that, but...
Just because it didn't come true yet doesn't mean it may not.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you never know. We never know what we might see as we get closer to Doctor Strange and Iron Fist. Chris, do you want to give us your final point?
I do, and I'm going to end on a bad note again. No. I'm sorry. Elektra! So, good note. We know where she gets her Sai. Yay! Good note. The fight was pretty good. Bad note. Why did they cut away for 15 minutes? We just literally cut, okay, we're going to fight, and then cut away, different scenes, and then it's wham, bam, you're back. And then there's suddenly mid-fight. I wanted to see that fight there, and then that would have been a better flow, better editing.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right. That's not too much of a complaint, I suppose. That's not too bad.
No, and we saw where she got her side, and Stick sent her.
Exactly, that big reveal.
Holy wah. I have some theories percolating in my brain, but I need to give it one more episode before I kind of get...
go on. Do wild speculation again that doesn't come true.
Okay. I think Elektra's more than Elektra in this episode, in this series.
Is that a song?
More than Elektra.
I think she was stolen from the Hand. By Stick.
Interesting.
Cool. That would be very cool.
Because Stick has kept her since a child, and he's been training her since a child, and we know she's Greek, but that's kind of all cover. And then all of a sudden, when she no longer does what Stick says, he wants her dead.
Yeah, very interesting.
I think
I can roll with that for the time being.
the whole thing is the bit she said that I can't control the want of death. I think it was. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but I think I don't know. I think she's something demony, maybe. No, not demony, but she's something.
Well, there's definitely the connection of Elektra with the Hand anyway, and so
yeah, exactly.
This angle could very well be true, and I'm up for that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's more to her than just being Elektra, being a kick-ass cool assassin. I just they could do it that way. I just think they're starting to hint.
They've
at
definitely
more.
been playing up the bad side of Elektra since the start. She's not just another version of Matt who happened to go along with Stick's teachings. She's definitely a bad girl, who I think more than Matt, Stick was probably reining her in rather than trying to teach her a path. It seems like she always was the assassin, and he just helped her hone her skills rather than him training her to be an assassin, which has been coming out a lot more over the last few episodes. Yeah, good, interesting idea. But I have to say, I love the opening when it does come back to that fight sequence. I love the start of the fight sequence, which is effectively a champagne glass flying across the room directly into Elektra's foot as she smashes it midair. Very cool scene.
Yeah. Really cool. No, it was a brilliant scene. I just wish that they hadn't have broken the flow, because I literally came straight into a fight and I had to kind of remember. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, I was really excited for this fight. And it was just like, oh, okay, wait, hold on. I don't know why they edited it in that way. Overall, I think this whole episode was a series of really long scenes cut and edited in different ways. Like, it's like, we have a 20-minute scene with Matt and Claire on a roof in a hospital. Okay, so we're going to cut this part here and then put it here. And then we'll put this part here. And then, we have Elektra's fight scene, which is 10 minutes. Okay, we'll take 5 minutes of that and put it here. I don't know what it is about it. It was just this really...
Too disjointed for you.
Yeah. Yes!
Okay.
Even though what you've described is basically editing.
That's kind of what I do every week for the podcast, Chris.
Okay, so you take this part and you put it here.
And I try and make myself sound coherent as well.
Yeah, there's no hope there.
I did kind of feel that the whole Elektra thing was didn't need to be in this episode in some respects, or it could have been done as a single kind of little scene at some point, because to begin with, and maybe this is why I think because it was kind of the follow-on scene after Matt and Wilson Fisk had been fighting it out and confronting one another in the prison, and obviously Vanessa had been brought up, because of the glamorous car, the private jet and all that, and because the face was hidden, I thought this was Vanessa coming back. Yeah. And I didn't understand necessarily why she had the scarf over her head and was hiding her face. I mean, it doesn't matter, but because it was hidden immediately after that, I thought this was Vanessa returning to New York City. So, and then all of a sudden it was Elektra, and it kind of took me out of the scene a bit, because I somehow wasn't expecting Elektra to be in that scene. I thought it was Vanessa. Yeah. And then it kind of stopped, as you say. I mean, okay, you were wondering, well, who is Jacques? What's he doing? He only bought actually a 3/4 bottle of tequila, and I suppose Tequila Watch. Don't know what the brand is.
I thought it was Yuzo. Greek.
I thought he said tequila, but yeah.
Someone who has subtitles, let us know.
It wasn't until much later on that this fight's going on, so it did seem a bit weird in that sense. I can understand that, but I think for me it was more because I thought this was Vanessa returning to New York City, given the scene previous to it, and when it was suddenly Elektra kind of all sort of hiding her face and so on, I was okay, and then the scene was kind of almost over before I'd really gotten into it, and then it kind of carried on afterwards with the fight. But it was good to see the fight. I mean, I loved it when she picked up the corkscrew, because I was thinking, that's such a nasty weapon anyway. But I don't think she hit her mark with the corkscrew. Yep. I think it was only
just
with
the two sides.
Yeah, the two sides.
Through the chest. Fantastic. Very, very cool. Definitely.
So just before we kind of close up that one, so remember we were talking about that this was all for this was the cast, and there was many different members, and we've seen Stick, we've seen Stone. Who do we think this was?
Jacques.
Similar to the guy, like, we know Jacques, but there's Shaft, Claw, Flame, Star, Wing. These are the members, and we don't know who the driver was. So are these just the underlings? He didn't seem like an underling, so I'm going, could this be Claw, or the ex-person of Claw, who used to, rather than having handheld metal blades, used the side?
Yeah,
maybe.
Possibly.
Again, just going off on a random
No, but that would be really interesting to have those characters here. But yeah, I mean, so far it's a Jacques.
Yeah. And for my final point, the one I want to talk about is, we've talked about the Fisk versus Murdoch moment, but I really like it from Murdoch's side as well. We've talked about Fisk being threatening. I think Matt's really threatening in the scene as well. The scene itself probably takes place in kind of in three main sequences, effectively. A real good 3-act play. It shows Matt waiting to go into Wilson Fisk. You see his nervousness going in, which is something that I wasn't really expecting from Matt. He looks really nervous going into the prison. You hear the heartbeat as he walks up the corridor going to Fisk. And then the next kind of act of it is his threat to Fisk. The fact that he's effectively saying to him, with a quick letter to the right person, I can make sure that Vanessa never arrives back in this country again. I loved the again, Matt pulling it back to the two of them being New Yorkers, effectively saying, she'll never come back and you'll never leave this city, because just like me, New York is in your blood and you can't go anywhere else out of New York without wanting to come back. Really, really enjoyed this kind of moment between the two of them, led by Matt, where he's kind of, again, bringing Fisk to his level, bringing the two of them as on that level playing field that they ended season 1 on. Just thought it was a really nice touch.
I mean, the thing I loved, though, is I loved the abject terror when he realizes that his blackmail hasn't worked. His hard play, his kind of, his, you know, maybe his, what he thinks has been his winning throw of the dice. It's not worked. All of a sudden, it's been totally turned back on him.
Yeah.
And I love the panic, the fear, in the man with no fear. Really cool. Like, I thought that was superb.
Yeah, definitely. Really liked it though. I think that's it for all of the overall points on the episode. Couple of notes.
Yeah, I've got a couple. I really liked when it's Detective or Sergeant Mahoney arrives at the place where the kids are being drained. I love when he says to Daredevil, just know that someday I'm going to tell you how to do your job. I was like, fantastic. Love that little quip back to Daredevil.
Nice touch for Sergeant
Really good touch. And again, just coming back to Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk, I love the end of that scene where it replicates the rabbit in the snowstorm scene, where it's the view, and this is obviously one of the, you know, the character traits that is used now to depict Wilson Fisk, is his back to the camera looking and staring at a wall. And here you have that, you know, the view of the prison wall. Okay, it's not white in this case, but again, it replicates that, you know, from the fiery red to the white, the snow white, and now just to a regular wall. It's that image of Wilson Fisk, that hulking bulk of a man sat almost slightly slouchy, just looking at a wall.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah, no, really good stuff. One note for me, just really quickly, because I confused the heck out of me the first time I watched the episode. It's effectively where Claire Temple is bringing in the kids into the hospital, and says that they need something to cool them down. And the nurses say to her they're all out of ice. Anybody find that strike them as slightly weird? It did until I watched it a second time. The reason why it was resolved in my head the second time is because I forgot that in the first 2 episodes of the series, they consistently mentioned they're in the biggest heat wave that New York has ever seen at the moment. So this is the first reference we've had to the heat wave in New York for 6 episodes. They stopped talking about the fans in the office. They stopped talking about how sweaty they all were when they were running around. I think it's important to keep that in mind. We're in Hell's Kitchen here. It's supposed to be the hottest time. I like that there's a reference in here, but I just didn't get it the first time around. I was wondering why. Hang on a second. We're in a hospital and they don't have any ice. That's ridiculous. You know, they've got a huge hospital. A huge building here with lots of patients that clearly need ice. So I just thought it was quite a little touch, just put in the background there.
But is the heat coming from the sun or is it coming from underneath?
Wondering that.
Is it supernatural? Is it Dormammu's flaming head that's just really cooking the surface of Hell's Kitchen?
That's entirely possible. Doctor Strange was a defender.
Absolutely. All leading to Doctor Strange. Indeed. Or it's whatever that massive hunking hole is
much more
the
likely.
apartment block.
Much more likely.
That's probably more likely. Let's just go with that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I've got one other note as well, and that's obviously that Frank Castle isn't the shooter. We've kind of, I suppose, said that implicitly just with talking about it could be Bullseye, but that he does save Karen from being shot herself. So there is this idea now that, you know, Karen is a target, or was it Frank? But it seems to me that maybe he was going after Karen Page, and in which case, just thinking about it, does that mean that he could have been hired by Wilson Fisk?
Maybe.
Or have we said that already? I think maybe, Chris, you may have said that. But, if he wants to destroy Foggy and Matt's life, deconstruct and dismantle their lives, that Karen would figure in that as well. So the fact that this person who is pretending to be Frank Castle is going after Karen Page, is it ultimately in the end Wilson Fisk, or again is it the blacksmith? Because the blacksmith may now be aware that his name is out there as a lead to be followed up on. Just the fact there that Karen obviously gets saved. And then I have one final other thing which I really quite liked, where Matt's kind of lamenting the fact that everything gets undone. He's kind of questioning, really what he's achieved as Daredevil. But I do like that Claire comes back and goes, well, I stitch up the same 3 crackheads each night. So I understand what you're saying. I just thought it was a really kind of nice way of saying, don't talk to me about not getting things achieved. Absolutely. I have to do the same 3 crackheads that come in each night because they never learn, or it never gets better. There is this cyclic thing going on as well. So I just really liked that line.
I really enjoyed Matt's point because he's absolutely right. It's effectively a guy I saw burned to death has come back to life. Frank Castle, who I know went to prison, is now back out in the streets and has killed the DA. And also Wilson Fisk, who I sent to prison, is now running the prison. It's like nothing works out for me. Really enjoyed that.
No.
Very cool. On that note, Chris, do you defend this episode of Daredevil, Season 2, Episode 10, The Man in the Box?
I'm very much on the fence of this, so I neither defend nor
so you defend
find
this
guilty.
Episode.
I defense this episode. Yes, exactly. So while still containing some really great, compelling moments, this, for me, was structurally probably the weakest chapter or episode to date in the season. And that says something. In Season 1, we had some up and down, and there were some big downs. It took them 10 episodes to get to one that I kind of felt, ugh. And I think it could be just the structuring or the editing, as we kind of alluded to in this episode. In my head, too much of the episode was kind of hinging on this murder spree that, as an audience, now in my opinion, but John, you kind of disagree, it's like it couldn't have been committed by Frank, and it was kind of obvious. So I don't know. So great scene. I'm on defense about the episode, so I'm going to say 3 out of 5 if I was to do a kind of thing. I think it was the structuring. I think, it had some other great moments, and aside from just this, the structuring and the way they kind of try to drag you along to make you think it was Frank, while making it kind of almost too obvious that it wasn't. It could have been so easily fixed if they had shown a different shooter, and then you would have gone, oh, they're trying to set up Frank, oh my god, brilliant, that would have been a bit more for me. So I'm going to go, overall, I'm on defense. So John, do you defend this episode?
I do defend this episode of Daredevil. I'm actually starting to question myself whether I am just being too liberal with my praise, actually, because I really liked this episode. I thought it was really, really strong. And I would definitely be giving this 4.5 creepy kids or midwich cuckoos out of 5. I definitely get the points with regards to Elektra, and I suppose with the fact that the shooting of Reyes, was that or wasn't that Frank? I think you could ask that question. For me, it wasn't that obvious that it wasn't Frank for that first shooting. So, I was kind of buying into that, to be honest. So that didn't spoil the episode for me, but I think primarily it comes from the strength of, I wasn't expecting Wilson Fisk to be back in this episode. And I loved this scene. For me, this is just really good. It's like a 2-person stage play, as Derek kind of said. It is so strong, so powerful, really great acting, such a fantastic scene. And we have Claire Temple back, and she just adds a really great perspective, and she adds a humor which doesn't detract from a lot of the serious stuff that she really has to say. She is kind of like this moral center for Matt, who really has to kind of bring him back on track every time she sees him.
Yeah.
I really like the fact, as I said before in a previous episode, that Matt and Foggy's relationship just keeps on getting worse and worse. It's not like, oh, next episode it's getting better. It's getting worse. At the time where his best friend is on a gurney with a bullet wound through the shoulder, Matt still has that temerity to say, I'm not asking for permission. Maybe, as Claire says, you need to just go and see your friend. I love how they're really making Matt, I think, into a bit of an arse. And I'd love to see how that plays out. And I think to see Reyes get shot and that all come out, I thought was really interesting. And I loved the Children of the Corn here. I loved that turn of them. You think they're getting better. You then hear that actually they've had a load of toxic stuff pumped into them. And they turn out to be those crazy psychotic kids with creepy eyes. For me, that I've watched Children of the Corn for the Urban Harvest. It is possibly the worst film ever. However, I still watched it, and I want to watch it over and over again because I love creepy kids with golden pupils or with blank pupils or whatever. Just that is such a great horror trope, quite frankly, that I love. So that was just a nice thing for me. Probably most people are going, why is he getting so excited by this? But I just happen to really like that kind of aspect of horror. And to me, this was a nice little horror segment in Daredevil.
Absolutely.
And it helps with the whole mystical element of it as well. We are starting to see and learn now about Black Sky and these weapons and all of this that the Hand are trying to resurrect. So for me, this really sets up a nice intrigue going into the next episode. So definitely defend this episode. But I'm wondering whether I have to start peeling back the numbers. I'm wondering whether my critical appraisal is being far too consumed by fanboy stuff like Midwich Cuckoos.
Maybe, but listeners, if you want to find an episode of a podcast that John particularly dislikes, just to give some perspective on that he isn't over fandoming, go and listen to our Fantastic Four podcast. You'll hear when he really doesn't like something. Or Gotham episode 16 over on Gotham TV podcast. Go have a listen to that podcast. You'll see what it's like when John feels a little let down by a show he likes. Luckily we haven't had any of those in Daredevil so far, or any of the Defender series so far that have gone to that level, I suppose.
But Derek, do you defend this episode of Daredevil?
Yeah, as I said, we haven't had an episode that's let us down yet. Definitely for me, overall, every time I see Claire Temple in an episode, especially with as much to do, she's a really active character in this episode. When I see her in these episodes where she's got lots to do and works with Matt, absolutely great. Always adds that little extra bit of flair to the episodes. Having Fisk and Matt face off in this episode, excellent. We've got the kids. You've mentioned them a couple of times, John, but the opening scene as well, when Mahoney finds them, all crouched in the dark, is another great horrific scene. It doesn't connect exactly to last week's episode. It doesn't connect to the end of last episode where Nobu left after the fight with Matt. The room is darkened. The kids are looking even creepier, even more emaciated. It's almost like a couple more weeks have passed after that fight. It's not. It is immediately afterwards, but it's a very different tone to how last episode ended. So thought that was a really nice touch. And then the closing of the episode, fantastic. We have the attack of the Hand as they climb up the buildings of the hospital. Awesome stuff. Really, really cool. So yes, definitely defend this episode of Daredevil. I think with that, it's time to get into the feedback. We got a little bit of feedback about this episode in by email over to feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com from Ronaldo. He says, "Hi guys, so much to love about this episode. Having Claire back is like a soothing balm, although she is always frantic on screen. The kids who were rescued from underground may be victims, but I just get a tense feeling that they have been affected in more ways than one from their ordeal. The scene with Reyes and the eventual exposition into the conspiracy at the Central Park carousel was well acted and written. Reyes shows her human side. It was a nice touch having her in civvies too. And the end of the scene is tragic and totally unexpected, if not for the split-second warning Matt gets from his hypersenses. The confrontation between Matt and Kingpin in jail maintained the tension in the show, which made it impossible to look away. My heart leapt in my throat when Matt started talking about Vanessa, the last person that screwed with Fisk, and Vanessa in season 1 ended up without a head. When Fisk finally explodes and attacks Matt, I was genuinely afraid for him. Although I knew nothing too bad would happen to him, great performances and monologue by both Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio. There's a slow unraveling of Daredevil 2. His conversation with Claire on the roof shows how demoralized he seems. The Punisher's hits on the DA and the dude in the hotel, Fisk's control in jail, and Nobu's return has really affected Daredevil and has him questioning if what he's been doing has been useful at all. I think this scene was really important as it typifies Daredevil at the crossroads of whether he continues to do what he does or if he starts to be more ruthless and more like the Punisher. Speaking of which, I like the Punisher showing a very heroic side when he saved Karen from the spray of bullets when they first meet. It shows him willing to get shot over an innocent, and for that you have to admire him. Finally, the best teaser for the episode to come was the final scene, the hand scaling the hospital, the creepy kids awake, and a desperate Daredevil putting his mask on to jump into the fray. The busted fluorescent lights in the hospital and the children of the damned are straight out of a horror film, and I love it. Can't wait for the next episode. Kind regards, Ronaldo."
Well, I can say nothing but absolutely agree with you, Ronaldo, on the creepy kids, and that absolutely, one of my favorite parts of this episode. As you say, it just builds for the next episode. What are they going to do? What are the Hand going to do who are scaling those hospital walls? You know, is it to kill them? Is it to cure them? I.e., you know, or bring them back into the fold and continue with what they're doing? You know, what's going to happen here? Are they too dangerous or are they too prized? I'm really interested to see that. The monologue in prison, fantastic. I like the idea as well about whether we are going to see a more ruthless Daredevil. You certainly have those depictions of Daredevil being more ruthless in the comics and that, so that could be a really interesting thing. You know, he does walk that fine line to being good and letting the devil out, the devil inside. So that was really good. And yeah, I mean, having Claire Temple back is just like great. She is a fantastic addition to Daredevil. Absolutely. Where she certainly gets more screen time and just across all the different Marvel Netflix series that I've heard to date.
Yeah, and just kind of, there's nothing much more I can say with I agree with what the guy said and what on your feedback.
Thank you, Ronaldo, for the feedback.
Yep, thanks very much for the feedback, Ronaldo. If you want to send in your feedback, as I mentioned, just email us at feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com or come and join us over on our group, facebook.com/group/DefendersTVPodcast. Then come back and join us next week, obviously, for our 11th episode of Daredevil. Only 3 more left to go, boys.
I know.
But next up, we're going to be talking about Civil War. If you haven't seen Civil War, this will be spoiler filled. So join us for episode 11.380 next week. Or go watch the film and then come back and listen to the last bit. First off, Chris, you didn't get to join us on our spoiler-filled Civil War podcast. So I have a basic inkling of what your thoughts of Civil War are. I know you enjoyed it overall.
Yep, I'm not even gonna lie. I'm not even gonna kind of do a pretense. I enjoyed the hell out of this film. I really did. There was just so much to it. There was so many nods to the book. We were all worried of how they were gonna do this element or how the story arc, and they did it well. Spider-Man was fantastically introduced. My God, thank God we didn't see Uncle Ben die again.
Absolutely.
I was. If we had, I was gonna cry.
We have hot Aunt May now as well, so that's grand.
Yes, hot.
I love the guesses that actually it's Uncle Tony now in this universe.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Very great.
And then Ant-Man, we knew it was coming from leaks on Lego years ago.
I actually got that from the Lego Marvel game. It gave us an Ant-Man pack, and it had giant Ant-Man in it. I was going, I wonder what this is for. And it was about 3 or 4 months ago. Yeah.
They gave Lego minifigs as well.
Brilliant.
With the airport scene. But it still loved it. And like some of the quips, such as like the old 70s film, the Star Wars one, Empire Strikes Back. I was like, come on, that was just classic.
It's how I feel sometimes talking with you, Chris.
I'm not going to say anything on that. It's all right, Grandad. I don't want to kind of belabor the point. I loved it, and I'll happily chat to any of the guys on the Facebook group or via our page about anything they want to talk about regarding this. Because I could gush for hours, but I wanted to hold off until we had this discussion.
So overall, I think I started off the podcast last week with our full spoiler-filled podcast, asking the question of John as well. So I'm going to ask you too. I know you're always Team Tony. I know you're an Iron Man fanatic. How, did that change during the course of the film? Did you come out as still on the side of Iron Man? Do you think they did a good job presenting both sides?
Overall, I think they belabored some of Tony's points a bit too much, in that they kind of tried to show him as the man who cared about the innocence and et cetera, like all that kind of the Sokovia Accords, and this is why. And then with Miriam and the fact that the son had died in Sokovia, and he starts feeling all this. He then goes and like just destroys like half of an airport. Maybe just take a step back and then when they're trying to capture Winter Soldier and Black Panther's chasing him and things in Budapest. I think that was again like they were like, let's try and not destroy everything. We're superheroes, and like how many cars got destroyed in that tunnel?
Absolutely, but they were all Audis. It's okay.
Yeah, did you know they were Audis?
Yep.
Oh my god.
It's just like Bond now. That's what happens in big chase sequences. They just get the rights to a 1-car company and 5 cars so they can sell them after the movie. But hey, if it got that airport fight sequence made, I don't care if they sold their souls to the devil. That airport fight sequence was fantastic. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah. As to whether I still agreed with it towards the end of the film, because he started using the raft, at the very end, I felt bad for him. I'm very curious to see what the brothers do with the rest of the universe.
The Russos, yeah.
Because you've got a shattered Avengers now. Literally, you've got the new Avengers and the Avengers. I didn't think they'd do this, which after Civil War in the comic books, you had 2 Avengers. Well, you had the official, and then you had the
That's the one, Avengers. Chris. Secret Avengers.
Yeah, I said new Avengers. Sorry, excuse me. Secret
exactly.
Avengers.
So Cap leaves the burner phone behind him to effectively say, "You can call us if you need us, Tony. We are still a team. We are the Secret Avengers." Very cool little touch. Yeah.
And who's on the Secret Avengers? Doctor Strange.
That's right. Yeah. Eventually becomes a member of the new Avengers.
And he's a defender. So is he the connective glue like Nick Fury was for Phase 3?
Oh, sore point.
Yeah, maybe. But Nick
Or
Fury
will they come together
Nick
because
Fury
of Strange
will return.
Tales?
Yeah.
That's what I want.
That would be pretty cool if we had Nick Fury and Doctor Strange coming together.
And they can do a period piece with 1602.
Maybe. Chris, any other thoughts about Civil War?
I had a few just quick kind of pieces I wanted to bring up. Easter egg / kind of I thought were cool. So when Tony's making the speedy exit from the Dean of MIT, which is the none other than Dean from Community, which I loved.
Jim Rash, awesome.
Yeah. He runs into Alfre Woodard, who plays a woman called Miriam. She works for the State Department, and her son was killed in Sokovia, and it was great. That was a crux, very much the beginning of the Civil War. But I can't help but wonder if there's a hidden meaning to her character name, because in the credits she's only just kind of named as Miriam, but in the actual comic books, there's a very outspoken supporter of the Superhuman Registration Act, which was the Civil War part of the Sokovia Accords. They're the same. And her name is Miriam Sharp.
Right.
And it's like, you've probably seen it in the comic book, she spits in Tony's face. And it's a very iconic kind of image.
I remember her being the character that Tony went back to quite a few times to kind of reinvigorate his belief in the Registration Act. Yeah.
Yeah. So could be how she continues on more and more in the universe.
Good catch, Chris. Good catch. Although we know that Alfre Woodard is going to be in Luke Cage, it's definitely confirmed it's a different character, has a very different role in Luke Cage, which is one of the first times in quite a while that an actress has appeared in the Marvel Cinematic Universe films and is going to appear in another property with a different character name. It's been quite a while since that happened. Chris Evans as Human Torch, anyone?
So the next point I wanted to bring up was the Dora Milaje. It was another nice nod to people who probably read a lot of Black Panther. When T'Challa is released from custody and Widow's kind of walking him to the car, there's a woman accompanying him, and she's kind of slightly skinheaded.
Very cool, yeah.
Yeah. So this was being that they're his warrior bodyguards, the female warrior bodyguards. And like they've had the Widow and the bodyguards have had some run-ins, and like, yeah, like, so this was great just to see it. And I was like, oh, they're gonna show the massive kick in the it's gonna no, they didn't.
But a great line from Black Panther. As much as I'd like to see that play out,
yeah,
step out of the way.
Exactly,
really good.
Penultimately, I can do this all day. What a great line!
Absolutely,
great to see that all the way from the first bully scene from Captain America: First Avenger, all the way through to now. Yeah, really good.
Now, this is what I'm going to bring up, which potentially could mean absolutely nothing, or it could be just something quite fantastic. A tie-in to Agent Carter, and I'm not talking about Agent Carter,
or Howard Stark.
Or Howard Stark, or any of them. No. This was Bucky's ex-girlfriend is mentioned as being Dot.
Really interesting.
Yes.
Wow.
So we've gone back and we've discussed this off air, and
I was pretty sure that it was Dot was the girlfriend that he met at the Stark Expo before he shipped out to World War II, but that's not correct, is it, Chris?
No, her name is Connie.
Right.
Yeah, so Dot is someone completely different.
Interesting.
So, we do know that Peggy was around. Could it be none other than Dottie?
Bridget Regan was the girlfriend of Winter Soldier before he became Winter Soldier. Interesting.
Could it be? It's how many Dots are there in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Like, come on. Like, they kind of... I think this is very much a nice...
That would be so cool.
It would.
Yeah.
Especially since we may not get Agent Carter Season 3. Like, this could be like, oh my god, this is how they ended it.
Yeah.
With one final tie-in.
Absolutely, and that is definitely a point I made on the podcast last week. One of the points, obviously, about losing both Peggy and Howard after doing 2 seasons of Agent Carter, and they finally make the close there. The involvement of the scriptwriters in this show and as creators of those characters and kind of having the death of them basically about a week before the announcement of whether a season 3 is coming or not. It was a really interesting timing, I suppose, for that particular moment. As we record this episode, there is about 24 hours before we know for definite whether there will be a season 3 of Agent Carter. So probably by the time I have this episode out, we will know whether we are getting a season 3, yay, or a season 2. Oh.
Should we take a vote?
Do we think?
In terms of what do we think?
Okay.
A bet. I'm going no. I would love yes, but I don't think they're going to renew.
Okay. John?
I'm going to be optimistic and say yes.
I'm thinking it's going to be Marvel's Most Wanted is going to be this season, and potentially we will see a season 3, but it may not be in its normal slot. So it might go into a summer slot, or it might go into later on in the year.
Okay. That could be. Because I was going like Marvel's Most Wanted was more because it's fresh, it's new. I thought that would probably get picked up, and then Carter would be kind of relegated to some kind of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. / Marvel's Most Wanted kind of tie-ins every now and again.
I think I have a feeling that if Hayley Atwell isn't getting another season, that is the last we've seen of Agent Carter. I don't think she's going to be coming back in anything else now. That's her final obligation now has been fulfilled in the movie universe. I think if we're not getting a season 3 of Agent Carter, we've probably seen the last of Agent Carter, of Hayley Atwell in that role.
True, they did kill her off, literally.
Exactly. I can't see much unless Doctor Strange takes place in 1985 and we see a different version of Peggy Carter in there. I can't see how they're going to fit her back into the movie universe. So anything else about Civil War before we go into a little bit of feedback about it?
Nothing from my side, but if anyone wants to have a chat with me more about what I thought about Spider-Man, being a Spidey fan, huge one, or etc., please feel free to come over and talk to all three of us on the Facebook group.
Absolutely. A little bit of feedback that we got in after our spoiler-filled podcast about Civil War. Ronaldo says he really enjoyed Hawkeye 2. To me, he's like the everyday man up against the superhumans, like if Daredevil were to tangle with the Avengers. I love how without hesitation, Hawkeye would take on Vision or Black Panther, even when they were way above him in terms of strength and power. One of my favourite Avengers in this movie.
Definitely really liked him in this. And Black Widow as well. I really liked her. Yes, both of them super skilled, but ultimately not superheroed.
Absolutely. Yeah. Really enjoyed the duplicity in Black Widow's character in this film, having to make the real choice between the two sides just because two of them are her best friends. Really interesting.
Yeah, no, completely agree on this.
Ronaldo also goes on to say, just to touch on your opening discussion, I was always a Team Cap person, but during and after Civil War, I questioned this due to RDJ's great performance, which lent itself to so much empathy and the intelligent script by the writers. They succeeded in presenting two fair sides of the argument, which I think has made it a great Marvel film and one which puts the Captain America trilogy on top of the pile.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I have to say, Robert Downey Jr.'s performance, fantastic. I like the fact that I was listening to another podcast by our friends over at Welcome to Level 7 where they talked about the fact that there's no conflict here for Cap. He starts out at the beginning of the film with his beliefs and by the end of the film it doesn't change. And they saw it as a bit of a poor writing choice, I suppose. I love the fact that Cap himself has always gone from a moral center right the way from the first of this trilogy of films right the way through to now. He's always known what his heart has decided. He always knows it's the right way to go and he always stands behind it. And just that little push from Peggy Carter through Sharon Carter in her speech or her eulogy, I suppose, at the funeral of Peggy Carter. Just that push is all he needs to keep on that side. But I love that he doesn't question his decision at any point. He knows he's in the right from his perspective. He does apologize to Tony if he's hurt him in the past, but that's about it. I like that was the decision that they made for him. I am still Team Cap for his reasons. I'm also Team Iron Man for his reasons because I think they're also quite personal and quite they are good reasons to have some form of control.
Yeah, no, I'm Team Iron Man.
Yeah, still Team Iron Man. Sorry, agree, but still Team Iron Man.
Cooler suit.
Yeah, bleeding edge.
Thank you, Ronaldo, for the feedback. Certainly, I thought Robert Downey Jr.'s performance was pretty dark and brooding. It was really good, but I think on the same vein, I think Chris Evans really just acted so well to that as well. Just echoing the thing that he said, when he's getting beaten up in Captain America First Avenger, where I could do this all day. That's such a great little moment. I thought both their performances really good. And in the same way that I would have had some sympathy definitely with Captain America's choice here. Definitely.
In response to that, Rebecca also says, I think it's hard to top Iron Man in the Iron Man movieverse, but Civil War is probably Robert Downey Jr.'s best MCU performance.
Oh, so I'm going to completely agree with Rebecca here on this. I think, and to the point that this is Robert Downey Jr.'s best performance over perhaps number 3 and number 1. To the point as well where Robert Downey Jr. is now confirmed he'll pretty much do a 4th Iron Man, and I'd say this is what drove him back, that he was bored, and then this has given him the tenacity and the love of the character again.
Yeah, absolutely. Rebecca also goes on to say, I think all sides in this film are fighting for family. For Tony, Widow, and Vision, the Avengers of the family. Whilst the same is true for Steve, Bucky is real family, and Sam will always go with Steve. T'Challa and Zemo are also fighting on behalf of family, and that's what makes the film have heart. And obviously, this is why Natalia Romanov is torn. She just wants Avengers to stay together more than more fragmentation. Really good spot there in terms of that kind of theme running through Civil War. And again, as such, Civil War anyway, pitting family against family,
Absolutely.
brother against brother, sister against sister, cat against cat, dog against dog,
Yeah.
goldfish against goldfish.
Yeah, really good point, Rebecca. I really enjoy the idea of this all being about family. The fact that Natasha does have that problem where she's come from a background of being a Black Widow, so her family has been stripped away from her at a young age. She's then gone in and joined S.H.I.E.L.D. Along with Barton, who are her family. S.H.I.E.L.D. broke apart beforehand. Yeah, totally understand. It's a really good point, seeing it from that family point of view. Yeah, really good. And finally, Wu says the funniest joke that didn't have any dialogue in the film was Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes looking at Captain Rogers out the windshield and nodding as he kisses Sharon Carter.
Underneath the arches.
Underneath the
Absolutely.
Yeah, really good. Thanks so much for all the feedback that we've gotten. Again, we have had a few other bits of feedback over on the Facebook group. Come join that, facebook.com/groups/Defenders TV podcast. If you want to send in any thoughts on any of our episodes or any thoughts about the podcast itself, pop them on over to feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com. About that time, we put the call out to see if you'll give us an old review over on iTunes. To get to our iTunes link, just go to iTunes and search for Defenders TV Podcast, or go through our direct link at defenderstvpodcast.com/iTunes. Leave us an old review. Let us know whether we're doing a good job and whether you're enjoying the episodes.
Absolutely. Really would love your feedback, and especially just the review. The more reviews we get, the more fellow defenders we can have in the group, and then that means even more people that we like-minded who can argue the toss about which is better, Spider-Man in the Iron Armor or Spider-Man in the traditional, or MCU Spider-Man.
Absolutely.
Who knows?
Absolutely. Or whether Doctor Strange was ever in Secret Avengers.
He was.
Interesting. We'll save that discussion for the next episode.
Dun,
Thanks so
dun,
much for
dun.
joining us, listeners. We'll talk to you again next time.
Thank you so much for listening, everyone.
See you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Are you guys hearing the screaming on the mic?
No?
Okay,
No.
Grant, okay. No, like, there's a couple having a full-on fight scream outside the window, and I can see them, and, like, she's beating out of him, but I keep hearing the screams, and I'm like, is that coming through on the mic? But it's not, it's Grant. Okay, it's good.
It might come through on your side, on your mic, but we get nothing fed through other than what you're actually saying directly into the microphone. So
Okay, Grant, that's fine, as long as it's...
Yeah, but sometimes we hear the buses, so it can't be.
no, that's only on. Well, usually only on Chris's.
When I'm
version of it.
talking.
Okay.
Yeah.
When Chris sends me the version of it, I'll hear it when I'm editing.
Okay, Grant, I just wanted to make sure that we're not hearing how many people having a massive fight and screaming. That's
Well,
fine.
can I just say that is the most disturbing question I've ever heard on the podcast. Can you guys hear the screaming?
I know. I was like going
Hold
on.
on. Oh, wait, actually, hold on, wait.
Check out.
Okay, now 2 other lads got involved, and there's 4 of them fighting. Yay! I love my area.
Welcome to Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah.
It's Hell's Canteen.
Okay. Jesus. All right. Anyway, sorry. Continue, John.